What we actually find is the turnaround time with land is actually quicker than any other physical asset like a multifamily or single family. There's a lot of people out there that own land that do not want it. And that is monthly cash flow for us. And we now get a couple of $1,000s a month just on a few pieces of land that are monthly cash flow. So land is great.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odom and Steven Silverman.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odom, along with Steven Silverman. Steven, what are you working on these days?
Well, I'm sort of involved all over the show, but what's interesting to me and looking at it from an investor point of view is the velocity of deals, how long it takes you to close, and every asset works differently. I mean, right now, if multifamily comes onto the market, it's gone the next day. And same with some triple net, yet I'm still working on a self-storage project, and that's been under contract for a year and a half as you go through all the approvals and everything that needs to be done. So the investor needs to really look at his tolerance for patience and being able to see out the entire deal, and you can't afford to fail halfway through.
I used to do Starbucks deals, triple net deals, did a number of them, did them all over the South, and it would take a year to get those deals done. Landowners get very frustrated with us. You know, hey, it's March of 2012. How come it's now March of 2013 and we still haven't signed the deal? I mean, this seems to be taking forever. Well, that's just sometimes just the nature of the beast. And the flip side, we get tenants that think a lease can be drawn up on a commercial space in 3 hours. You know, it's a 60-page document that typically an attorney goes over. I mean, there just has to be some patience that with certain types of deals that people need to understand that they just don't happen at the drop of a switch.
But for an investor to understand the time horizons they're looking at, because sometimes they just don't get it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So wanted to remind our listeners, if you have not had a chance to do so, we would really appreciate if you would go to the Apple iTunes store or to our website, either one, and either leave us a review or a comment. It's a challenge, and we work very hard to produce the show and find guests that are going to be good for you. And that helps us a lot. And so it's got the purpose of like you do something and it helps us, but also helps yourself because, we're out there trying to find guests that have meaningful content for you. And it's easier for us if you guys are leaving comments and they see that people are engaged with us and they can come on and know that there's people listening and there's an engaged listener base. So if you're not done so, we really appreciate you going there and doing that. It's a big help to us and it's a big help to you as well. Steven, are there any more housekeeping items before we go into our guest?
No, we've got a long distance call today, so let's go straight to it.
Yeah, we've got somebody getting up very early in the morning on the other side of the world who wants to talk to us about land. So we're looking forward to that.
And today we have with us Alicia Jarrett. We're talking to Alicia in Melbourne, Australia. So while we're getting ready to go home, she's just having her coffee. Alicia is a passionate and globally driven real estate investor. She's actually investing in the United States and in Florida from Australia. She's also an educator and provides efficient business real estate marketing solutions to people who want to invest in real estate. Alicia, welcome to the Invest Florida Show.
Thank you so much, Eric and Steven. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, Alicia, we really appreciate you investing time with us. Why don't you give us a brief overview of how you got into real estate investing, and then we'll later go into why outside of Australia.
Yeah, sure. No problems, guys. So I guess if I can start with the why outside of Australia, I guess I'll start there, but I'll round back later in the conversation with that too. The climate over here in Australia for real estate is much different than the United States. So the ability to actually do particular deals over here, leverage different investment strategies and the cost that it takes to enter the market is vastly different to the US. So about 4 years ago, my partner Matthew and I, we just started exploring different real estate markets around the world. And funnily enough, the more research we did into investing in the US, the more attractive it became for a number of reasons. One, the point of cost to enter the market was actually relatively low, so really good opportunity to leverage cash. But two, the information that is available to us in the United States in order to do real estate investing, to find out details about properties and property owners and overdue taxes or liens and foreclosures, all of those types of things, the information that we can get in the US and then utilize to find motivated sellers or interested buyers is just huge. So we started, nearly 4 years ago now. We did a couple of fix and flips with some houses and they were great. We were really focused on affordable housing at the time. So, our entry point for a lot of these houses that we did was somewhere in the 15 to 25,000 to purchase it. And then once we fixed and flipped it, almost sort of doubling in that, which was wonderful. But then I guess, guys, houses, as most of you listening would know, houses and single-family homes can be quite stressful. And our last house, I think if it could go wrong, it did go wrong. And that was pretty stressful. And from then on, we thought, okay, let's explore some other asset classes to invest in. And that led us to invest in land. They're not making any more land, so it's a really good thing to invest in. And also we invested in mobile homes as well.
What particular areas of the United States? You're in Florida, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Interestingly enough, we started in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida, which we absolutely love. Got some great friends there as well, and we've got a team there. And we've expanded out to a lot of other counties across Florida. And we always started with the intention of doing some other states across the US, but there's something about Florida that is just the gift that keeps on giving. So we actually haven't needed to go outside of Florida yet with all of our deals that we're doing. So that's been really exciting, but I'm sure we will expand into other states again soon.
So walk us through a little bit like how you go about. I mean, you're far away and it's logistically, it's difficult for people even in Florida, and you're doing it from Australia. Tell us how do you go about investing?
Looking at a globe and spinning it and then deciding, boom, this is it, Florida.
Yeah. I love that question because it's interesting. A lot of the people that I even deal with over in the US are saying, I live in another state and I find this difficult enough, but you're in another country.
On top of it, you talk funny.
It's funny that you say that, Stephen, being that you have an accent as well. But if I can share with you guys a funny story, there's been twice now that we've had motivated sellers that I've been speaking with about their land and, what their plans are and what they wanted to do. And they were getting offers from other people, but because of my, I guess, very friendly and outgoing Aussie accent, they decided to give the deals to us. And I said,
nice.
Just because of my voice. And they said, yeah, we think we could just talk to you all day. So it's interesting how some people feel that being a foreigner is a barrier. But sometimes it's actually a rapport builder because people are interested in other humans. And, when they hear a different voice or they hear what we're doing, they're genuinely quite curious about it. So it's actually been, I think, a plus for how we do business because it's stood us out as a bit different from everybody else.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen that also. Like people sometimes are more suspicious of the person across the road than somebody who comes from a whole different area because that's not viewed as like competitive and they're just more open.
Yeah, maybe just that little point of difference, right? That we're something a little bit more interesting in their day. I'm not sure, but the accent has helped me in some ways, that's for sure.
My friend, I've got an Australian friend, and I can't tell you how many times we go out for a pint. And we can't, obviously the last year we've not been able to do it much, but when we did, it's like as soon as they hear his accent, it's like, oh, here comes all of the Aussie slangs the how about throwing the shrimp on the Barbie, the, oi, with the drongos and galas and the crikey blimey stuff. And it's just like, and he'll just sit there and look at him and he goes, okay, are you done now? You done? Like they're the blokes and
it's
Sheilas.
Hilarious, Eric, because we actually don't really talk like that over here.
Yeah. Well, that's what he says. But of course, it's, everybody here, well, in our age bracket anyway, watch Crocodile Dundee. And of course, we're the home in Tampa to Outback Steakhouse, which based an entire restaurant chain on the movie Crocodile Dundee. So it is one of those things, like all of those supposedly colloquial sayings in Australia become one of those things that people like to talk about.
So what Eric's saying is he speaks ancient Australian. He still uses words
I think so.
He uses words like behold and things like that.
Well, it is interesting, guys, because I actually grew up in country Australia. So as much as I live in Melbourne now, I grew up surrounded by sheep farms and cattle farms and different things. And in the country, they definitely do speak different. And then when Crocodile Dundee came out, and I still think it's relevant today, you still hear people doing the old, that's not a knife, that's a knife. And that's one thing that hasn't gone away.
Yeah, that's another one I missed. And my friend he just sits there and he's like, he's patient with it, but you can tell it's like, okay, enough. Let's get all the Aussie nonsense out of the way so I can have my pint. Come on. Let's go.
Yeah. Agreed.
So tell us how you did your first deal investing in Florida.
Sure. Our first deal. And the other question that you asked before, the apologies I didn't answer, is why Florida?
Yeah, why Florida?
So when we started researching, we went and did a course like a lot of people do when they get into investing in real estate in the US. And one of the first things that this course was telling us is what to look for in your research. So Matt, my partner Matt, is actually really fantastic with research and data and analysis and things like that. He's got a tech background. And so we started jumping in and researching growth rates, movement rates around the states, as in, who's moving from which state to which state, market averages, market saturation, local government investment in infrastructure and what's happening in certain areas. And we just kept coming back to Florida. It was like, okay, Florida seems to be pretty popular for a number of reasons, but the question we had to ask as an investor is it too popular? Is there too many people down there investing in real estate? So where's the sweet spot? So that led us to stay away from some counties that were perhaps saturated with investors and wholesalers and things like that. And we just kept coming back to Jacksonville. There was something about Jacksonville with the demographic, the widespread of the area itself. It's one of the biggest cities in the US in terms of distance and how spread out it actually is, which also ensured that there was a number of opportunities from an investment perspective to look at different areas for different reasons. So, and as it turned out, we literally picked up the phone the day that we decided, yep, let's give Jacksonville a go. We literally picked up the phone to a local realtor and introduced ourselves and said, we're going to become investors in Jacksonville. Do you work with investors? And he said, yep, I sure do. And that person, Michael, is still on our team today. He was the only real estate agent that called us back.
Oh, that's cool.
And he is now our joint venture partner on a lot of the deals that we do. And so that's how it started. He got us our first few houses. He even helped us put a team together to do the fix and flips. And he's been an absolute superstar. So I guess to answer your question, research was one thing, but relationship was the second. Building that relationship in place and having someone there was absolutely wonderful.
So your version of R&R is different to what other people think of R&R.
And what's that? Research and relationship as opposed to rest and relaxation.
Correct.
I could do with some of the other R&R at this point in time, but the busy life of an investor doesn't seem to stop.
Tell us about, I understand you've got quite a system for technology and helping you with your deals. Can you give us like a 30,000 foot view of how that works?
Yeah, sure, Eric. So I guess one of the things of being remote is trying to get efficiency in our systems and processes. And what we were noticing with what we were taught from a lot of educators is very manual in the way that people do business, or a little bit old school, if I can say it that way. Go to a county and download your list. Get your list cleansed by a virtual assistant. Get in touch with a mailing house or print the letters yourself and get them sent out for all of your marketing. And Matt and I just kept sitting back and thinking, there's got to be a better way to do business. We are both from corporate backgrounds, and both of us, love things that are efficient and, using technology to help drive results. So we stepped back and thought, how can we run our business like we were a bigger business? So we're not thinking of, the small ways of doing things. We're thinking of, bigger processes and ways of doing things. So we actually built out our own platform. This is before we even had a name for it. We built out our own marketing acquisition system that basically at the 30,000 view, it's an end-to-end systemized process that includes all of the data, all of the mailings, all the mail tracking, online landing pages, online ads with Google and Facebook, email automation, calling systems, etc. That basically meant that whenever we were going out to acquire a property or put a property under contract, who we were targeting and how we were targeting them was now done not only a lot more easily, but also in an efficient way that means that we've never got our foot off the accelerator with our marketing. Because as you guys would know, the minute you stop marketing and filling in a pipeline is the minute you stop getting deals. So we just built that for ourselves. And as it turns out, we just shared that with a few friends of ours that also do real estate investing in the States. Some are in multifamily, some are in single family, some are in land. So we shared it with a few of them and we said, we've just built this system that's helped us out pretty much to automate our acquisition. And lo and behold, that turned into a business. So that's now called Supercharged Offers. So not only do we do land investing, we also now have our own marketing business that is specific for people doing real estate investing.
Now, we have a mutual contact. Actually, we were introduced to you through him, who's a friend of ours, Colin Murphy, and he's actually been on the show a couple of times. And it's interesting, another foreign investor investing in Florida. I'm curious how you guys made that connection the first time. I mean, Colin reached out to us, and then how did you and Colin connect?
Yeah, great. I loved meeting Colin, as I described to you guys before. He's such a good human. So Colin actually watched another podcast that I was on talking about our marketing platform and how what Matt and I are actually trying to do is to really kind of, I hate to use the word disrupt because I think that has been overused, but we're really trying to innovate in how people do business when it comes to real estate. So Colin actually saw me do a specific interview around that and the technologies that we're using and how we're using data, and he reached out. So he became a customer a few months ago. He's using the platform for his own business and seeing some great results, and his branding and everything looks fantastic. So we've had so much fun developing that with Colin, and he's like, I think you need to speak with Eric and Stephen. I think you'd really get along with them. So here we are.
So let me ask you a question. One of the things that we read about is that you've been investing in land, and that's a little bit of an unusual strategy. Most people are going to gravitate to income-producing multifamily or homes or something, but land is typically a longer play, and you can fix and flip it, but it's a little more difficult. So, what's your strategy been for land?
Yeah, if I can, with respect, Stephen, I'm actually going to correct you on a few of those things.
I'd love to. I'm used to that, but
so with land, what we actually find is the turnaround time with land is actually quicker than any other physical asset like a multifamily or single family. So when we go out and find land, we're finding it with people who don't want land, and there's a lot of people out there that own land that do not want it. They've inherited it. They bought it to develop on years ago and the property's gone backwards, a whole range of reasons why people don't want land. So we get it under contract and we do almost do a fix and flip. So there's a number of different strategies that we use with land that have been really awesome. So we can get the property under contract. We then wholesale that property back out into the market at obviously at a higher rate than what we get it under contract for, and we can do a cash flip. And we take on all the cost, responsibility, and due diligence on behalf of the seller. And then we also pay for closing costs for both seller and buyer. So everybody wins. So that's one strategy. But the other strategy that's really picking up momentum at the moment is seller financing on land. So when we get a piece of property under contract, we can actually buy that property direct. And then for the new owner of the property, because let's face it, there's a lot of people in the States whose credit over, recent events over the last decade, whose credit is not fantastic, but sometimes it's not even their fault. They're in a good job, they're in middle America and they want to build a future for their family, but no bank's going to lend to them, and banks don't really lend on land all that frequently. So we can enter into a seller finance agreement with them and they pay it off over a period of time. We have it under a mortgage and a promissory note. That is all managed through a loan servicing company. And that is monthly cash flow for us. And we now get a couple of $1,000s a month just on a few pieces of land that are monthly cash flow. So land is great.
Are you focusing on any type of land? Like, is it land for residential or commercial?
It's all of the above, actually. So I guess I would say 70% of it would be vacant residential, because that's obviously the main, majority of land that is out there. But we also have a decent percentage that is agricultural, commercial, and industrial. Now, the agricultural space at the moment is very interesting. We've found a very different conversation is happening with our buyers over the last couple of months, where buyers previously were probably more leaning towards infill lots within an urban area to either expand their current house, if they want the lot next door, or to build an investment property or a property for their family in an urban area. The shift I've seen in the last few months is a lot of people now want a small piece of agricultural land that is multi-use so that they can put a house and things on it, that is outside of the urban areas. I think in the last 12 months with COVID and everything that's happened with a little bit of unrest in some areas, people are wanting to get out of cities. So we're finding a huge amount of our buyers are coming to us asking for agricultural land. So that's going to be an interesting emergence to see where that goes.
And so how are you finding these motivated folks? Are you looking for sellers I'm talking about? Are you looking for folks that might be delinquent on tax deeds or how are you finding them? Like, what's a trigger for you?
Yeah. Yep. So definitely anyone that's behind on taxes, but most of our criteria for vacant land is there's a multiple of things. I'll list a few off for you. But we obviously want to make sure that the land we're targeting is above a certain value and above a certain size so that it is buildable. So we look for size and value first of all. But then when it comes to the attributes of the owner, a couple of things that we're looking for with the owner is things such as owned it for more than 7 years. So we're looking at, if they did have plans for it and those plans have fallen through, maybe they do want to get rid of it. Maybe they've acquired the land under a quit claim, which for a $100 quit claim, a lot of that is land that's been intergenerational, that's been passed down from one family member to the next. And you'd be surprised, guys, just how many people, I'm in my mid-40s, and we speak to a lot of people of the same age demographic that have had land left to them, and they're like, we don't want land. We don't even live in the same state. Like, we've never even seen this piece of land.
Right.
We have a lot of motivated sellers who have acquired the property via a tax deed and now they can't get rid of it. So they need problems solved, such as probate or a quiet title. So we can help them out with that and, they can walk away and we can still make a profit. So there's a number of different motivated sellers out there. And it's amazing how many people are just holding on to an asset and quietly ignoring it and thinking that it's just going to go away.
Is there a price point that you look for?
Yeah, we tend to go for anything that is above $5,000 market value, all the way up to anything. We've gone after properties that are over $1 million easily because, there's a reason why they're holding on to that property and not doing anything with it. So a lot of our properties are raw, they're unimproved. Sometimes they had previous, buildings and dwellings on them that are no longer there. But again, the whole premise behind land is it's sitting there. It's a non-performing asset. It's costing them money to hold it with insurance, taxes, upkeep, anything that to avoid liens. The counties now are getting really quick with adding liens on properties for overgrown grass or trash that's been dumped and things like that. So, a lot of people that we know that have got land don't want those hassles anymore. They want to be rid of that stress.
And have you gone through any processes like rezoning in order to increase the value of the land?
We are interesting questions here, and we haven't had to do that for any of our lots yet because there's always been a buyer. And when I say there's always been a buyer, we are literally turning around lots in 2 to 3 days. So we get a lot under contract. By the time we have done our due diligence and advertised it, which will take us about 2 to 3 days, most of the times we've got it under contract with a buyer in another 2 to 3 days. That's how quickly land is turning around at the moment. It's super exciting, and it's a great place to be. We have had a number of lots over the years that we've had to look at very different exit strategies to suit the buyer. And some of those have been making sure that, I've got one piece of land at the moment that is vacant residential, but we also know that the county has classified it for future development as commercial, so we can advertise it as both. We haven't had to do anything like subdivide or rezone at the moment, but what we have done with some of our buyers is helped them with the process of doing that if that's what they choose to do with the property as well.
Are you advertising these someplace on a website?
Everywhere. We are advertising them on our own website. We're advertising them on land.com, Lands of America, Land and Farm, Zillow, Facebook, you name it.
And when you say your own website, that's the Land Scouts website?
Yeah, the one that we have for our properties that we're selling is forsale.landscouts.com. So that's obviously different to our acquisition sites, which is just landscouts.com. We've got another site called sell.landscouts.com, which is for acquisitions too. But yeah, the forsale.landscouts.com is where we're selling all of our properties. It's interesting, guys. We're at the stage at the moment that we're almost running out of inventory because we can't get properties quick enough by the time buyers want them. So
interesting.
And the other thing with land, once you get a really good buyers list, because there are still people out there that land bank, and there's builders and there's developers and people that we partner with, we actually find that, I would say probably 20 to 30% of our properties, we don't actually even advertise anymore. We get them under contract. We send out a first look to our buyers list for the people that we know that are wanting land in that area, and it's gone. Wow. So it's a very efficient way to look at buyers and sellers.
And so besides land, are you looking at any other categories of real estate investment?
Yeah, so we're invested in mobile homes. We're both quite passionate about ensuring that, any country that we visit, because we used to do some investments here in Australia as well. We're very passionate about affordable housing. And, we were very astonished in all the times that we've been to the States, which I've lost count of because we spend normally half of our year there before COVID. We do see that there's a huge market for mobile homes. More than 23 million Americans live in mobile homes, and investing in good mobile home parks. And we've got a very good friend of ours, Shemin Van Gundy. She's known as the Queen of Mobile Homes. We've invested in mobile homes to make sure that we're also doing longer term strategies on affordable housing.
So it's hard enough doing things when we're sitting here, but you're coming in from overseas. And maybe you can tell us, what are the biggest mistakes you see investors making when they going into real estate?
And particularly those from outside of the country, because I think there's a different hurdle for them.
Yeah, there is. But interestingly enough, Eric, the hurdles are not that different. So whether you're in the country or out of the country, you've still got to set up an LLC or a corporation. So you've still got to set up your corporate structure, and you can do that online these days very easily. You've still got to set up your strategy. How do you want your business to run? What asset classes are you going after? I think the only physical difference that is a barrier is doing things like self-closing. Now, I know some people that self-close from other countries. We've got a friend of ours in the UK that self-closes all the time. And it's just a little bit more from a process perspective to get that over the line. We close with a title company all the time because we're more interested in the efficiency of our time. So if we can pay someone else to do it and we can then focus on things that are more revenue generating, that's what we choose to do as a business. But I think coming back to the biggest mistakes, some of the mistakes that I see people make is the ratio of working on your business versus in your business. Now, what I mean by that, guys, is anybody who is starting out a real estate investing business, you need to get in there and know how to do everything. Because if you are then planning on outsourcing, your calls to a call center or a virtual assistant, or your sales process to somebody who's a closer on the phone, or your admin process or anything like that, you can't outsource it without, first of all, knowing what good looks like for yourself. And I see a lot of people getting into real estate investing and they set up these teams and throw the problems at people, but they haven't really thought through how to manage that, measure that, systematize that, and put the right processes and things in place to make sure that that's efficient for them. So that's probably one mistake I see is people get into this business and they either want to do it all. So they're working on your business versus in your business. These are people that are really in their business trying to do everything. But then they get a deal. They might get one or two deals. And then whilst they're busy, in inverted commas, busy, focusing on turning that deal around, they've lost focus on the rest of their business. So they do the deal and then they turn back and it's like, okay, there's nothing in my pipeline. So now I've got to start again. So I see a lot of people on a lot of groups out there on Facebook that have that problem. It's always feels like it's stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Whereas I say, when you're starting, get in and learn in your business, so know how to do everything, but then sit back and say, what's my time worth? Where is my time best spent working on my business? So Matt and I, for example, we've worked really heavily on our business on putting systems, processes, and people in place to manage a lot of our pipeline management for us, both on an acquisition and a disposition side. But we haven't done that without knowing how to do it ourselves. And we haven't outsourced to a person without knowing exactly how that task is going to be managed. So that's one major thing I see people doing. I'm not going to say wrong, but I think sometimes it's about letting go of control and making sure that you set things up in a way that supports you. Yeah, so do you understand what I'm saying when I talk about working in your business versus on your business?
Yeah, definitely. We do a lot of working in our business, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Steve's a slave to his phone. Like he cannot get away from it. It just rings and he jumps because he has no system for figuring out how to control that telephone. So it controls him. And that's the exact example.
We're like camels, you drink and you fill up both humps and then it lasts you quite a long time. And suddenly you got to go and drink again and you got to go look for water.
That's the joy of a pipeline, right? And making sure that we've got pipeline consistency. So, I see that mistake a lot. The other mistake I think I see is that particularly in the land space, I think when you're doing multifamily, single family and other assets, there's a lot more due diligence and research that goes in. But in the land space, I see a lot of people doing a real scattergun approach, and that is that they're not doing the adequate due diligence and research to pick their areas to target, and then they send out 3,000 mailers and don't get anything back and wonder why. And I think it's also a good practice to think and reverse engineer. If I put $1 into marketing, how much do I want to get back? So my other piece of advice I would probably give a lot of people, and this is for every asset class, is always reverse engineer your numbers. How many deals do you need to do per month, per quarter, per year? And what's that deal profit worth to you? And then how many marketers, mailers, how many things do you need to do to get those number of deals that you want? I think a lot of people out there, and with respect to your listeners, a lot of people out there just don't put in the due diligence to reverse engineer their numbers and do it realistically. And then they turn around later and go, well, the system doesn't work. It's like, well, it does. You've just got to know how to work it.
Well, it's interesting because I'm on your site right now and I see that you have done deals in a lot of diverse areas. So when you talk about scatter, the first thing that when I look at, I say, well, it seems like they're all over the place, and maybe it's not particularly fair because it's like that triangle that we tend to hit too, which is Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, that triangle. They call it the I-4 corridor, but as we call it the Jackson, Orlando, Tampa triangle. So tell us a little bit about how you've focused on those, and still that's a really big area, right? Now, I don't see you doing I don't see you doing stuff in Spring Hill and in Ocala. So you focused on something, although at first blush it doesn't look like it. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the areas that you focused on and why you focused on those areas.
Yeah, sure, no problems. So I guess, we like to do areas that we know have certain growth happening in them. So we've certainly focused on a number of counties that we've done for quite some time. So I guess coming back to our areas, first, it's making sure that there's enough buyer and seller activity in those areas. Second, it's making sure that the price point. Now, we don't just do a county because if we're just mailing out to everyone and anyone in that county, we're probably not going to get the best return on our marketing investment.
Massive dollars to hit them.
Massive.
Yeah.
But what we do is go down to specific zip codes. And even more than that, we use census tract information, which a lot of real estate investors won't go down to this detail, but we do. So we go down and even look at census tract data to get, areas within zip codes of socioeconomic data that tells us the land in this area is worth X, the people in this area average income is X, development in this area is X. So we go through and look at all of that detail and then target those specific areas and those specific properties. We absolutely love Duval County. Duval County has always provided us with deals that are low entry point deals in some areas up to, massive deals that are a couple of $100,000. Hillsborough County is always something that gives. Pinellas County, Charlotte, we've done quite a few deals in. Lake County, Orange County, they tend to be the main ones that we focused on. And to be honest, guys, we haven't gone outside those counties in quite some time. We're actually doing a strategy at the moment where we're going to go out to some new counties and test. But those counties I just mentioned, as I said, they're the gift that keeps on giving, and we seem to always get deals in those areas. So, and that's the other thing with land. We retarget people quite regularly. So we might send out a mailing and get a certain response rate back, but then in 3 to 6 months' time, we'll target that area again, because you never know when someone's motivated to sell. The first letter that they got from us, they might be, no, not really ready, going to sit on this land a little bit longer. By the time we send them another offer in 6 months' time, they could have a kid that's now going to college that they need to pay for. They might have some unexpected medical bills that came in. There might have been a zoning change in the area that now they've got 3 times as many taxes that they didn't expect. There's all reasons as to why people want to get rid of land at certain points in time. And
so let's talk a little bit about like inside those areas that you really like. So even then, like when I'm looking at your site, there's a like large swath. So obviously you'd go bankrupt if you're trying to hit everybody, every piece of land. So how are you further breaking it that down? Like what are the important bogeys for you to say, this is really the areas that we, not only the area, but then the bogeys that we want to try to hit. So we're narrowing it down from 100% down to only 5% of the total lots that are in the market.
Yeah, so it's all about criteria at the end of the day. And as I mentioned earlier, you've got sort of 2 types of criteria. You've got the land criteria itself, and then you've got the owner criteria. Land criteria for us, as I mentioned, is it's always what's the minimum build size for that particular county and what's a minimum market value that we're going after. Other than that, anything above our minimum market value and our minimum land size, we go for. Because every single piece of land, as I mentioned, there's always an exit strategy for. Now, here's the thing. Because of our marketing system that we've put in place, we've been able to get our acquisition costs down quite low and our mailing and our data costs down quite low as well. So it definitely doesn't bankrupt us. We actually send anywhere between, on average, about 8,000 to 12,000 offers a month is what we send out. Now, that might sound crazy to some people, but, that yields us quite a lot of deals per month that we can get into, which is great. So we have our criteria for the land. Then we also have the owner criteria. And that's where we're looking into socioeconomic areas, where we're looking into how long they've owned it, what type of ownership it is, how they acquired it, when they acquired it, if it was
where they live
20 years ago. Yeah. Do they live out of state? Yeah. All of that. So then we're narrowing the field down based upon the person as well.
It's interesting. I do some single family work too, and a lot of the stuff that I've done has come through probate and targeting probate attorneys. And because I understand, like for me personally, I'm a professional and have professional degrees, and I relate best to professionals. And so I understood that. So I would go after attorneys if they would pick up the phone and call me if they had an issue. I would always try to help them solve the problem, and I would relate to them. But I can tell you more than a handful of deals that I've done, plus what has occurred, maybe not something that I've done, but I've maybe wholesaled it or whatnot, have been, let's say mom has a property in Pinellas County and she passes away, and daughter or son, whatever their issue is, are in Ohio or New York or whatever it might be. The most recent one being you've got a $1,000 an hour securities attorney in New York, and to try to come down and deal with mom's house and there's stuff that's in it for somebody who's paid $1,000 an hour, it doesn't make any sense. That house is worth $200,000. Property's worth $200,000. And, if she sold that for 20% less than market value, it's still a lot cheaper than her getting her rear end on a plane and coming down here and sorting it out herself. So it was kind of one of those deals where, man, I'd love to find more of that type of a deal, because you've got these folks that either don't want to deal with it or can't deal with it or whatever the issue is from out of state, and now they're motivated to make that whatever it is go away. When mom was sick, I came down. Yeah. When mom was sick, I came down and got the stuff that I wanted. And then now that she's passed away, we handled the funeral arrangements and came down again. But I am not coming down for 2 weeks. This was literally the conversation I had with this attorney in New York. I'm not coming down for 2 weeks and going through the mess in that house. Eric, whatever you have to do it. Just get rid of it. And I don't care. Just, give me something reasonable and we'll move on. So, those are great opportunities. It's just trying to be in the right place at the right time. It sounds like you really systematized that.
Yeah, definitely. And we've had situations similar, Eric, even with land where, we've had to do a number of quiet titles and probates for people where, stuff has gone on for a family and it's just not worth their time to fix it or the effort to fix it. So they just sit on it. And the thing that I love about real estate investing at the core of it, it's always about helping someone. All the lots that you see on our property site at the moment, they've all got a story to tell where the seller has had that property for some reason at some point in time and something hasn't worked out or they need something helped. So we've gone in and helped with a number of situations similar to what you've described, or we've arranged to take trash off a lot. We've arranged to have municipal liens taken down off of a lot because we've cleaned up the lot. And, at the end of the day, I think if you can approach real estate investing through the lens of everybody wins, that's got to be a good thing.
So, Alicia, what final advice, if you just have to distill it down, can you give to people who really want to get into real estate investing?
Yeah, my final advice would be don't have paralysis of analysis. There's a lot to learn in this business, and we're still learning. We learn something every day, I think. And I see a lot of people go out there and they pick their asset class and they do some training, and then they have a failure to launch, which is, for me, if you're going to invest the time and money to go in and do the training on things or to find a mentor or a coach, then you've got to start somewhere. So my final piece of advice, Stephen, would be just start, because, when we started, we made so many mistakes, and some of them are really quite funny. But we just started, and every time we made a mistake, it was an opportunity to learn and put a system or a process in place to avoid that in the future. And even when we got our first deal, I remember getting that piece of paper sent through to us, and I looked at it and I said, what do we do now? But this is the thing with real estate, is there's a great network out there. There's loads of resources out there. And if people just started, then that is half the battle. And most of us, I find, that are in real estate investing, I would say 80 to 90% of the people I know didn't start out in real estate investing. So we've all learnt in some way, shape or form. And that's why The other part of Supercharged Offers that we've built is to help people to launch, which is let's just get your data and your mailings done for you so you can get some deals through the door. Because even then we see a lot of people like, I've done all this training, but I'm analyzing too much and not making a decision. We're like, just start.
So, Alicia, if people want to reach out to you, either to learn, maybe there's some deals to do or to learn about certain systems that can help them, how can they reach you?
Yeah, good, thank you. So if they wanted to know more about the systems and processes that we're putting in place for acquisitions, they can reach me on my email, which is Alicia, ALICIA, at superchargedoffers.com. And our phone number is also 888-538-5478. And if they want anything to do with land, again, our land business is separate, but that's Alicia, ALICIA, at landscouts.com.
Awesome. Alicia, really appreciate the time that you invested with us today. It was a great conversation. Anything else before we let Alicia go, Stephen?
No, we're looking forward to seeing you when you're next in America, and maybe I'll see you when I'm in Australia.
I'm going to do what Colin did. I'll be on your doorstep saying hi.
Yeah, Stephen's got a fat wallet. He likes to take everybody out for dinner and drinks, so we'll be looking forward to that.
Outback, yeah.
At Outback.
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful meeting you both and talking with you both today. Thank you so much, guys, for the time and the opportunity. And here's to meeting you in person for a shrimp on the Barbie one day.
Exactly, a shrimp on the Barbie, absolutely, or blooming onion.
Have you heard of a bryflace?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's South African, but that's different. I'll educate you.
All right, Alicia, thank you. And that was Alicia Jarrett calling in from Australia. Great conversation. I always like talking with folks who are investing in Florida that are outside, not only of the state, but outside of the country. Stephen, what were your thoughts?
Well, Alicia said some things that we always talk about, which is paralysis by analysis, just spending too much time analyzing, not getting out and doing it. And it's interesting to see how someone from outside the country can get out and do it. But what I found was really interesting is traditionally investors are looking at going in, starting off in multifamily or doing single-family homes and flipping. And Alicia and her team have found just other categories of real estate to invest in that other people are ignoring. So I found that very refreshing.
Yeah, what I think was important for me is I see so many investors come into the business and they don't have systems in place. And it really rings true with me, the working on your business, not in your business, because if you're handling everything, and you can't be everything. It's impossible. But it's also about being systematic. And this is another a point that you see investors giving up. They dump $3,000-$5,000 on mailers. They don't get any response from it because they're not targeting properly. And before you know it, they've spent whatever their marketing budget was, and they have no deals in hand. So being targeted, being systematic, having a follow-up system, and targeting those deals that not only are going to get a response, but they're capable of being executed on. And that's really important. And so it's interesting to see somebody outside of the country and, have targeted these areas. It was fascinating to me to learn why and how her thought process in the areas that she targeted. And she's doing really well. I mean, if you go to her site at the Land Scouts website, you can see how many deals she's done and how much success she's had. So kudos to her. Great guest. Stephen, other great guests, where can we find them?
The place to go is our website, www.investfloridashow.com. Also, download the Invest Florida Show app from iTunes or from Apple or Google and listen while you're mobile.
Guys, as always, we appreciate the time that you invest with us each and every episode. And until next time, hasta la vista.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Stephen Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show.